Hey my tech friends, thanks for stopping by. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Let's continue to grow this channel. Hope you guys enjoy this video.
Hey guys, welcome to a video I've wanted to do for a while. And in this video what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at a Windows 11 system and we're going to do a comparison in a real world type of scenario to a 2022 server. And the reason why I wanted to do this is because the 2022 server is built on the Windows 11 kernel. The platform is the same. But the Windows Server operating system, even though it has all of the additional options to run it as a domain controller or a variety of other configurations, I have a feeling that that operating system is probably lighter weight than our Windows 11 platform. And I'm wondering, from a gaming perspective, as a starting out platform, without all the other stuff on it. So for instance, with this particular desktop, we have it built as if it was a desktop, right? We have our configuration for our Steam on here. We have the Epic Game application on here. And we have things that are running down in our tray, for instance, Steam. And if we look at our utilization here, we're idle right now at 3.5 gigs of memory usage. And the reason why is because this operating system is just super, super bloated. And I'm curious if we'll have the same issue on our Windows 2022 server with all of the same applications installed. So if we look at this right now, we have 6 gigs of memory utilized or allocated to this particular system. We have 2 cores allocated to this system. We're using a solid state hard drive. We have the Ethernet connection connected. Right now we're not doing anything, but the Ethernet is very busy. We're receiving 24, 18 megs. It obviously fluctuates, but we're receiving data off of this particular network connection. And we have a heartbeat. We have information here in our CPU that's being used. So now if we take a look specifically at our processor, or rather our memory utilization, so we're dropping slowly here. We got down to 3.3 gigs of utilization, and we're seeing the CPU probably still in the range. Usually the CPU on Windows 11 is going to bounce and fluctuate between 3 and 9% idle. So we'll probably just see that continue here. We might see a couple spikes as things take place in the background of the actual operating system, but that's about what we're going to see. If we look at our utilization here, we're going to see total memory available is about 6 gigs. We have available physical memory is about 2.5 gigs, roughly. Obviously, 512 versus 577 megs, so I'm going to say 2.5 gigs. Where virtual memory max size available on this particular system is just a hair under 8 gigs. We're currently having available is 4.25 gigs, and we're using 3.5 gigs of page file. So this machine is very active for something that doesn't have anything else going on. I mean, if you look down here in the tray, we just have command line and we have task manager. Those are the only 2 things running that are chosen to run. Now, that obviously doesn't take into consideration our weather and our things in the tray and just things that are taking place in the back end of the actual operating system. So we have all these applications installed on here. Let's take a look to see what our idle application usage is on a 2022 server with the same applications installed. Okay guys, so now we're looking at the server operating system. And I know you're probably thinking to yourself, wow, that looks a lot like Windows 10. And it does, because the start menu is really designed to look like Windows 10. The operating system functions like Windows 10, but the back end is Windows 11. The config, everything that's running is Windows 11. And as such, you still get the Windows 11 functions and features, but you get the Windows 10 desktop, which makes it a lot easier to work with. And my guess is this is what Windows 12 is going to look like when they eventually release it to fix their faux pas with the Windows 11 operating system. So you'll notice right off the bat, we don't have anything running in the taskbar. There's no weather alerts. There's no apps. There's nothing constantly pulling off your internet connection. The operating system itself is a lot quieter. The task manager looks like the Windows 10 version. As far as performance utilization, we're using 1.1 gigs of memory to run the operating system. And if we change the graphs to logical processors, we can see the two processors. We once again have 6 gigs of resources available. We don't have an enormous amount of data running in the background. Let's get this system updated to the latest version with all of the updates installed. And then let's start installing our applications, and we'll go through the configuration on how to install your audio drivers to get the audio card to work on the server platform. We'll go over how to get the server manager to not pop up when you log into the system, and we will go over how to set up the wireless WAN connection for your wireless drivers on the actual server operating system. But first, before we do that, let's take a look to see what we're actually using. So we have 19 gigs of 29.3, so 19 gigs are really 29 gigs free. So the operating system, the 2022 OS itself is 10 gigs in size without all the updates. So it's really pretty close to about the same size as Windows 11 is without all the updates. I think Windows 11 actually is a little bigger, but not too much bigger to really make that much of a difference. I believe that Windows 11 out of the box, I think, is like 13 gigs in size. So it's about the same. With that said, let's get this thing updated, and then let's go through the process of configuring it so we can use it as a desktop. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is update the system. But in order to do that on server operating system, they added a configuration tool that makes it a lot easier to actually update it and a lot faster. I'm just going to show you how to do that real quick. So if we go to Start, we do CMD, and we run this as admin. We get the command prompt open, and we're going to simply type in sconfig and hit enter. We'll see sconfig is loading, and there we go. We have the system configuration now, server configuration. You'll see that it's an evaluation license. So we don't have a license, and you can actually see that down here too, that the license is valid for 180 days. But the 180 days could be rearmed up to 3 times, so it's really 540 days that you could use the system free of charge, and that's the trial key. Now, if you compare that to a trial key with, say, Windows 11, you have, I think, 3 days before you have to license it, and then you lose functionality of the OS. So right off the bat, if you don't have a license for either of these platforms, Windows 2022 Server is still the better platform to run, just because you can run it for 540 days before you have to do a reinstallation versus the 3-day trial period, and then after that, you're locked out of the operating system. Okay, so let's jump into how to do this. So what we're going to do is we're going to specifically look for number 6 here, which is install updates. So if we hit the number 6 on our keyboard and then hit enter, we're going to go into an area here where we're going to get the option to install updates. So I'm going to choose 1. I want to install all of the quality updates. And then I'm going to hit enter. And the system's going to search for the applicable updates available. And you see how quickly it found the updates? That's because it doesn't have to wait on the GUI to actually load the update platform. So let's install all updates. So if you see down here, we can see the option for all updates, or A. And then we hit enter. Now the system's going to download the updates and it'll install the updates. And once it's done, it'll generate a pop-up on the screen here to let us know that it's available or ready to do the reboot to finalize the installation of the updates. But do you see how much faster this is than doing this through that stupid settings menu in Windows 10 and Windows 11? That's this sconfig feature. Okay, so while this thing's doing its thing here and downloading the updates, let's close out of the event viewer. Let's move this out of the way for a second, and let's do some maintenance on this box to prep us for our actual configuration. So the first thing we're going to want to do is make sure that the server manager doesn't start up with Windows. So when you log into the system every single time, this will be a site that you see on the Windows server, and it takes resources to load this every single time, and there's really no reason for it to run in the background all the time. So to fix this, we just simply have to go to Manage, Server Properties, and click the little checkbox down here that says Do Not Start Server Manager Automatically at Logon. Select that and hit OK. And now when the server starts, that Server Manager platform won't start with Windows, which will allow you to, again, maintain the desktop look of a server operating system. Okay, guys, so we're now seeing installing updates versus the downloading updates. And if you do a comparison in the time that's listed down here from when we the last clip of this video to now, you'll see the difference in time is really not that long, which again is the reason why you want to do this through the console, the command here, versus using the settings menu, and why this is honestly just so much better than what you're going to find in the desktop configuration. Okay, so while this is still going here, let's take a look and do our configuration for our audio. So if you see down here, we have the little red X and it says the audio service is not running. That's a really simple fix. So we're actually just going to right click on the command prompt, right click again, choose run as administrator, and in here type in services.msc and hit enter. And we're going to see the service console open up. And in here, we're going to specifically look for the audio service for Windows. And that service name is actually called Windows Audio. So if we do Windows, there's Windows Audio. So let's just do properties, change this to automatic, hit apply, hit start, hit OK. And now you'll notice down here, we actually have our speaker configuration. So our audio service is now running. And that's how you would enable or run the audio service. Now the secondary one here for the audio endpoint builder, you could leave that as manual. Windows will only start that service if it's absolutely necessary. So again, the only one you really need to change is the Windows Audio, set it to automatic, and then start the actual service. Okay, once again, since we're still updating or still installing our updates, let's now go into the configuration on this particular system and install our wireless drivers. So in other words, let's set this up so that way wireless internet is available on this particular operating system. Now to do that, it's pretty simple. We just go to Start, we go into Server Manager. Now you'll have to wait till this little bar at the top here finishes scrolling before you can actually do anything in here. Okay, so now that the scrolling up here has stopped, we could click Add Roles and Features. And then we're going to choose Next. And then we're going to choose Role-Based or Feature-Based Installation. Okay, so then after we selected our server, sorry, I don't want to show you the previous screen because I don't want to show you internal system information. But after you select the system that's currently running, it'll show you the system's name as well as the IP address. You'll select that and click on Next. And you'll get to this screen here where it says Server Roles. You're going to just click Next and not select anything in this area. Once you get into Features, what you're going to do is you're going to scroll all the way to the bottom here. You're going to see something that says Wireless LAN. And you're just going to simply check that and then click on Next. And at that point, what you're going to get is you're going to get the confirmation to install the wireless LAN service. And just click on Install, and that will install the wireless LAN service. Once it's done, you'll have to reboot the box in order to get the service to come back up, so that way you can see it. Now once you reboot, obviously, you would come back to your internal desktop. Keep in mind that I didn't choose to install the wireless LAN. We're on a virtual system. There's no reason for me to do that. Also, our Windows 11 system doesn't have it on there. I just figured I would show you how to do it if you needed to run the actual service. So now that we're waiting here, we're just going to wait for the rest of these updates to apply and install. And once they do, we will reboot the system and then kick this back off in our installation process. Okay guys, so I'm actually on my second round of updates. I've gone through my original configuration and did a reboot. Now I'm in my second level of installation of updates and now it's prompting me to do a reboot. I figured before I did the reboot so I could show you specifically on the screen what this looks like. Once it's finished, it'll say installation succeeded, and then it'll say restart required true. And then down here, you'll ask you whether or not you want to do a restart. And you just click Y for yes, and then hit enter key, and the system will restart itself. Now, something that comes up as a common occurrence inside of our Windows 11 and Windows 10 communication or conversations from the subscribers on this channel is the annoyance of the Windows 11 update process and the Windows 10 update process. And that's another reason why the server operating systems are better. Because if we look in our Sconfig here in our actual configuration area, we're going to see here that we're going to get an option here under number 5, which is the update settings. So right now we're set to download the updates only, which means that the system won't apply the updates automatically. You still have to update it. I mean, obviously you have to manually update it, but the system won't update the system automatically. And the way this works in the server operating system is the Defender application uses the update service to update in the background anyway, regardless of the actual update settings for your Windows updates, which means that even if you disable the updates, Defender still works. Whereas in the desktop platform, if you go in and you change the configuration to disable the updates and not apply updates until like 2050, the Defender application won't update itself, and therefore your antivirus will get out of date, right? You won't have the latest config in your antivirus to actually scan for the latest viruses and malware. But in the server operating system, since it's not the same process, the server operating system will still update Defender and not run the Windows updates and force the reboot. It's a split control. Okay, guys, so we have all our updates applied, and we have the system renamed, and we have our update protocol configured for download only. Now, keep in mind, you can change that and make that something different if you want to download it and say automatically install. That's still an option, but it's an option. It's not forced down your throat like the desktop operating systems. So now the question is can we install all of our applications on here? So you'll notice in 2022 server, at least, it comes with Microsoft Edge. Okay, so once Edge loads, you'll notice that we have the actual Edge page. Now, something I want to show you inside of our server configuration manager or server manager real quick is an option called IE Security, which exists on the local server itself. So if we go in here, we'll see IE Enhanced Security Configuration, and you'll notice that it's set to on for both the administrator and the users. You want to leave that configuration alone in server 22. In server 19, that's something that you would have needed to change because server 19 didn't ship with Microsoft Edge. It came with just Internet Explorer, which IE still exists on this server versus, say, the Windows 11 desktop. The server 22 still has the Internet Explorer option in it. Again, unless you're going to use IE for something, there's absolutely no reason to change that setting. But if you do use IE, it'll block every access to everything, and you'll have to change that configuration setting in the server manager in order for you to actually do anything with Internet Explorer. Okay, so we now have Microsoft Edge. What's the first thing we want to do? Probably download Chrome and Firefox. So it's just simple. I mean, realistically, it works exactly like the desktop. You'll just go to the website, you'll click to download, you download it, and you'll run it. So there we go. We're installing Chrome. And it was just simple to just go to the Google website and actually download Chrome. So there you go. You do the same thing on your Firefox configuration and download Firefox, and you can use Brave or any other browser that you use on Windows 11 or Windows 10 will work absolutely fine on server 22. So there we go. Now we're downloading and installing Brave. Again, this operating system really should be treated just like a desktop because until you install all the server configuration on it, it works just like a desktop. Okay, so now we have our browsers installed, and as you can see, it works just like you have on your desktop configuration. You're going to have your browsers listed. We're going to just unpin the browsers that we're likely not going to use, like for instance Edge, and then we'll throw Firefox down here on the taskbar so that we have the two browsers that we'll likely use the most on this particular operating system. So now let's install some other applications. Let's put FreeOffice on this system just like we had on our Windows 11 box. So there we go. We're starting to do the installation of FreeOffice. We'll click Next and Accept and Next and Install. So there we go. FreeOffice is installed, and we'll click on Finish, and you'll notice that we have the icons for FreeOffice now on here. Let's do our installation of Steam. So we're on the Steam site. We're going to just click on the Install Steam. It's going to download the installer. We're going to click on that. We're going to click on Next, 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 Install, run Steam. Okay, so we got Steam installed, and it's running in the background now in our tray. Let's get the Epic installer installed on this system as well. So you can see we're on the Epic website. We're downloading the installer. We're using Chrome to do this. All works the same as the desktop. Okay, so we got the Epic downloader downloaded. We're just going to do the install on this one. Okay guys, so now we're back at the exact same point where we were on our Windows 11 system. We have our internet connected to the system, we have Epic installed, we have Steam installed, we have the VLC player installed, we have all the updates installed, we have our browsers installed. But if we look at our utilization, we're not using anywhere near the amount of resources that Windows 11 takes to just run. And keep in mind that in the Windows 11 configuration, I didn't have the Epic launcher configured to actually launch with the operating system, whereas in here, it's currently running. So we actually have more applications running on the system than we would have or did have on the Windows 11 system out of the box, at least personally configured applications. So what do we see? Well, our memory utilization is 2.2 gigs of memory out of 6 versus the 3.5 what we were seeing on the Windows 11 system at idle. We're seeing the CPU usage, honestly, probably a little higher, between 6 and 9 on here, where we're seeing it between 3 and 9 on the actual Windows 10 machine, but not a huge difference on that. We don't see any traffic on our network connection because this operating system doesn't have all the built-in spyware the Windows 11 operating system has. So I would say that this is probably the better platform to use if you're going to run a gaming system to run Windows gaming on an OEM vanilla system that's not heavily modified. Okay, so what's the use case of this system, right? So what is the benefit of using this over Windows 11 outside of just the performance aspect? Well, number one is it doesn't require a trusted platform module. So this will install on a 7th gen or a 6th gen processor, and you don't need an 8th gen or better like you have on Windows 11 in order to get Windows 11 to run. This doesn't require that. This also doesn't require the newest, latest, and the greatest video cards to run. You could run an older video card on this actual system and still run the system. So now the flip side to that is the guys that have the newer bleeding edge video cards, you still get all of the access to your DirectX controllers, all the latest DirectX configuration, but you still maintain the look and feel of the Windows 10 operating system. So the only real downside that I could see in using the server operating system versus, say, your Windows 11 system is the license cost. But if you're using it just for gaming and you're going to reinstall things and you're going to image the machine on a yearly basis just to keep things fresh with the latest drivers and things running correctly, then generally speaking, I would tell you to use the server platform. It's just a better platform. It's better developed. The updates are better. The update process is better. The whole experience of the operating system is much smoother. And quite frankly, in my Windows side of my fence, where I work majority on Windows servers, my Windows desktop is Server 2019. I gave up on desktop operating systems probably back at Windows 7. After Windows 7 was gone, I went immediately to a server operating system, and I've stayed in a server operating system and used that as my primary desktop since Windows 7's end of life in 2020. Honestly, it's probably the best of all worlds because it gives you the functionality of the standardized operating system, not all of the Microsoft spyware and ads and garbage and crap and slowness and bloat. It's a much better platform. So if you're using a gaming system and you want a vanilla system, why not Server 2022? Okay guys, so before we jump into our Nessus configuration, I just want to throw out a disclaimer on this, and that this is a server operating system. It is not a desktop operating system. So we are using it as a desktop operating system because it's actually lighter weight than the available desktop operating system from Microsoft. It has a lot less questionable applications running on it. But that said, it is a server OS. And as a server OS, when we run our Nessus scanner against this, we will likely see a lot more information for configuration changes that are requested or required, or things that are information as in suggested changes to the operating system to better secure the operating system. That's totally normal in a server platform. The server platform has much more functionality than the desktop does, so there's a lot more options as far as an installation process on the actual server than there are on the desktops. So as a result, we're going to get a lot more info back on our Nessus scanner when we run our scan. So let's patch the system with a couple changes. Now, I say changes because there's a couple CVEs that exist on 2022 server out of the box that require some registry modifications in order to get them to close up. So I'm just going to apply those registry changes, and I'll put those down in the description so you have them. And then once I do that, I'll kick off the Nessus scanner, and then let's scan the system and see what it comes back with and compare it to our Windows 11 system. Okay guys, so we're now on our Nessus configuration, and I have the window preloaded to our Windows 11 no firewall configuration. So if we look at this, we have 40 infos. Now this particular system is patched all the way and has the SMB registry modification on it, so we don't get that single high alert. So we do have 40 info configurations in here, and if we drill down into these and we look at these are really just suggestions as to what you could do to further secure the actual operating system. And that's based on current installed applications or current configurations that are currently set up on that particular system. So there's really nothing in there. I would call that pretty secure on a Windows client-based machine. Okay guys, so let's look at our game server scan. So specifically, we're in our gaming area here under our game folder, game server folder. We have game server 2022 or game server 22 on here. We ran the scan today. Let's take a look at what we got. So we have 185 infos and we have one high. And what we're going to do is we're going to drill into here. The high is actually a VMware Tools thing. I have to patch VMware Tools if we're going to support 2022 server and the latest patches. I just don't have the patch applied, so just ignore that because that's because of my VMware Tools version that I have installed on that particular system. As far as the other things that are on here, it's all configuration based. Again, the server is going to give you a lot more information as far as what should be configured based off of best practices. So for instance, best practices is not to install Steam on a server. Best practices is not to have Firefox on a server. Best practices is not to have Chromium or an edge-based Chromium on a server. There's the Firefox browser extension. There's a variety of things that are in here that are configuration standards that really don't. So, I mean, like, for instance, antivirus software check. The description, an antivirus application is installed on the remote host. So this is a notification to let you know that the system has antivirus installed on it. These aren't necessarily bad things that you see in the infos. And realistically, the only one that's really in here that was any cause or any alarm is the one that I put in there, which is because I installed an older version of VMware Tools. So keeping that in mind, this is a relatively secure operating system, all things considered, if you have those registry fixes in place. If you don't have the registry fixes in place, then you'll generate a CVE report, and the CVE report is it's not good. Ultimately, there's a bug or a problem in 2022 server, even with all the updates about certificate vulnerability. And basically, it allows a remote code execution or a hacker to remotely execute a code and access your machine through the guest account, even if the guest account is disabled. So there's registry keys to fix that. And then there's the SMB signature issue, which would also have to be fixed in order for those things to go away. But once you get rid of those, it's relatively good. It's relatively stable. So what's the verdict here, guys? Is this something that you guys are interested in? Is this something that you could see benefit in using as a gaming system? Now, keep in mind, I know for a fact that the AMD installation package to install your drivers works on 2022 server, but I'm not sure if the Nvidea one does. And I don't have an Nvidea card here to actually test that. So if somebody does have experience with the 2022 server using it as a gaming platform, let me know if you had any problem installing the Nvidea Shield, the actual driver configuration package. Now, if either one of those things don't work, you could still install the drivers for Nvidia and AMD, but you have to do it through the computer manager and not through the actual, or rather do it through device manager, and then not through the actual console or the actual software that you would download and install on the system. But that said, everything else on the system will function like a Windows 11 box, but without all the annoyances. So let me know if you found value in this video and are willing to give it a shot. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one, and I'll see you on the next one.